Oh, what's up? What's up, everybody? How y'all doing today? We're gonna give y'all a minute to come in while everybody's coming in here. I'm gonna talk about something real quick. So I'm gonna tell you about some funny shit that happened to me today. So, okay, so this is the problems I have when I'm making videos. I gotta turn all of the sounds and everything off. So my phone on. I gotta turn the volume down, like whatever it is. I gotta turn everything down, right? So I turn everything down, right? And then I'll be like, oh man, let me run to the bathroom real quick. So I run to the bathroom, go take a leak or whatever the case is, and I miss one of the most important telephone calls that I have received at any time soon. So shout out to that. I mean, me and my bladder's gonna have a talk after at the end of the day. Like, God dang it, I just went to the bathroom for 5 minutes. Anyway, how's everybody doing today? We're gonna talk about the Eric Garner situation with the police officer that was just fired, and we're gonna also talk about how this is the beginning of change. I'm telling you right now, this is the beginning of change. What a lot of people might not understand or even realize is one of the biggest issues that we always have when we have a police officer that harms or does his job the wrong way or hurts somebody or whatever the case is. One of the biggest issues that everybody have is yes, it's an individual that lost their life or an individual that was harmed or hurt or whatever the case is. But the biggest problem has always been there's been no repercussions. Police officers have been able to do the most heinous of acts against individuals in the United States of America since forever, and there's never any actual ramifications for their actions. This goes all the way back to the civil rights movement. This goes back to when they used to sick dogs on people. This goes back to when they used to have the freaking the water hose and water hose people. This goes all the way back to then. So this is nothing new. This is not how do you say a isolated incident. So anybody that's gonna say justice was served, justice was not served. There was a man that lost his life. There's a family that lost their patriarch. There's kids that lost their father. There's a woman that lost her husband. No, this is by no standards fair. None at all. But the thing that did happen is I can see traction and movement, and I'm gonna explain. When was the last time did a police officer? When was the last time we know of a police officer being fired for behavior like this? When? It doesn't happen. Very rarely do you see a police officer kill somebody in the line or do anything in the line of duty, and no one is and anybody is held accountable. And just something else to let people know, because I think this is something that people don't realize. If you look at the Constitution, if you look at the not the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, I believe it still says that black people are like 1/5 of a person or 1/3 of a person or something like that. So you have to understand that a lot of these laws that are in effect actually affect people of color if you're seen as a black individual different. That's why I recently had an interview, and in the interview, Wildcat said they marked him off as black, and I laughed, and a lot of people didn't get the reason why I laughed. Some people was like, well, Dominicans are black too. Yes, Dominicans are black too. That's not the point. The point is that you don't understand that paperwork means everything. So when they have paperwork and they have a specific individual marked down as something, that's basically to let other people that's going to be seeing this paperwork in the future know how to deal with the individual, know how they're supposed to handle it. So when they had a Dominican guy and they mark him down as black, that's specifically because they want him to receive that type of treatment that the black people are receiving when they're in custody in the prison system. But that's neither here nor there, and that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. All right, so homeboy, I forget his name, that actually choked out Eric Garner. He has lost his job. A lot of people are gonna say, why didn't they find him guilty? If they would have found him guilty of the actual murder, that would have put the police officers, the police precinct, and the city of New York on trial, right, for a civil case, right? Another thing that would have did is that would have directly been a point that people could make to say that they're not being adequately trained. So you got to understand, a lot of times people lose against the city and they lose against the PBA, the Police Benevolence Association, and they lose against the police just in general whenever it comes to court, because in order the for you to find a person guilty, a lot of times you're going to be putting the city on trial for the way in which they're training. The city cannot be put on trial for the way that they're training individuals, because then there's a lot of other cases that'll come up out of nowhere. Then there are future cases that their precedents will be had. The problem in reality is the way that these people are being trained. They're being trained in a manner that leads them to believe often it's either them or me. Okay, so you'll have an individual in every single potential criminal they come up against, every single potential suspect they come up against, they're thinking it's them or me. They're not thinking this person might be a civilian that didn't do anything. They're not thinking there's a good chance that this person is innocent of whatever the crime is. They're thinking it's either them or me. And that's part of the reason why you see a lot of individuals, a lot of police officers are so quick to pull their firearm on people of color, and they're not so quick to pull their firearm on people, on Caucasians. Because when they're dealing with people of color, they're dealing with people with color under the principle, under the premise of it's them or me. So take that into consideration. It is the training. In my belief, it is the training. I don't believe that everyone that accidentally kills a black person, or I don't believe every single police officer that kills a black person did it with malice. I think some of them are just being trained incorrectly. I think some of them are being trained to be fearful. They're being trained to be scared. They're being trained to, how do you say, believe that their life is always in danger. And if they consistently are going out there into the public thinking that their life is in danger, this now becomes a way of thought. This becomes what they think. This is how their brain operates now. So now when they go out into the public and there's a disagreement with a person of color, they're gonna immediately go into fight or flight mode. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are being, injured and being killed. And some of these police officers are 100% just not, they shouldn't have a badge. But I'm saying not every single police officer that ends up hurting somebody is doing it because of malice. They're not all doing it because of hate. Some of them are actually doing it from fear. Although there's just some evil motherfuckers out there too, so let's just keep that a stack. But a lot of these guys are just doing it out of fear. And that's why they weren't able to find him guilty of the crime, because by finding him guilty of the crime, then you can argue, or argument could be made that, because remember, this was a chokehold, this wasn't a shooting. This was allegedly, an illegal chokehold. This was not a shooting. So, okay, so he killed him from a chokehold, so then that has something to do with the training. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, if this was a situation where he would have just shot him, I think that I think everything would have turned out a little differently. In this day and age, if you're in New York City and you shoot somebody under those circumstances, I think that you are going to be found guilty. But due to the fact that this was because it was an illegal chokehold and not a shooting, not getting hit with a car, there was no weapon used other than, the human body, I believe that because of that situation by itself, the city couldn't allow for there to be a guilty verdict, because once there's a guilty verdict, then the city can also be held accountable. And not held accountable is just, we're gonna sue them on this case, but also the cases that'll come up in the past, the cases that'll come up in the future, because the argument would then be made that the city isn't appropriately training their officers. If that makes any sense. So I think that's why the guy did not. That's why I think homie did not get found guilty, and why he evidently got fired, because remember, the judge wanted him fired. And then even more importantly, our mayor currently is supposed to be colorblind. So, well, not even going to say supposed to be at this point. He's married to a black woman. So that's the optics.
thought about it. I don't know why you thought
Yeah, so that's the optics. So that's just something I wanted to chop it up with y'all about.
same thing, man. Same thing.
That's just something I want to chop it up with y'all about. I feel bad for the Eric Garner family. I feel bad for what they're going through, everything that's happening. But at the same time, not but at the same time, and at the same time, I understand why the city had to do what the city did. They were covering their ass. A lot of times people think the city is trying to protect. That's just retarded. A lot of times people think,
I just wanted the same,
shout out to Milwaukee. Shout out to, who is that? A. Quinn. A lot of times people think the city is protecting the police officers. The cities are not protecting the police officers. The city understands how the law works. A lot of us don't understand how the law works. They understand how the law works. They understand that one case basically improves the chances of another case. That's why if you look at paperwork, they're always citing other cases. Like whenever you look at paperwork involving in the courts, they're always citing, well, this happened in that case, that happened in this case. You get what I'm saying? One case helps another case. It's just the way it is. It's the way it's always been. That's literally the way that law works. So it's better than a good chance. The reason why what happened, as far as him not being found guilty in order to be able to go to jail, was because then they have to say, well, why did he do this? And the premise of why he would have done that is because he wasn't trained appropriately, which could then hold the city of New York responsible for future and even past problems that the police do. Branching off far from just illegal chokeholds, but just, this police officer wasn't trained appropriately. You understand what I'm saying? But a lot of police officers aren't trained appropriately. Hell, a lot of doctors, I guess that's why you got to be intern for like how many years before you can actually, be an official doctor. You understand what I'm saying? So, maybe they got to figure something out with this whole police thing. Maybe there's something they got to figure out, I personally think they need to do psychological testing at least once a year. I personally think that because if you do it at least once a year, then you can tell what kind of degradation the mental state might have been had by any given police officer, and you'll be able to determine their propensity for breaking crimes, their propensity for overuse of violence or whatever the case might be. So that's why I'm saying it would be a good idea if they did have if they don't currently have annual psychiatric evaluations, which can then remove a person from their position. Like if you don't, at the standard, if you're below the standard, you can lose your job. You understand what I'm saying? Or you got to go to some kind of something in order for them to help out whatever mental. You got to understand, like people just go through stress. Like the problem a person might have might not even be their actual job. A problem a person might have might be something that they're going through at home, something they're going through on the internet. It might not necessarily be, at the place that the issue is manifesting. You understand what I'm saying? Often people have problems that manifest from places outside of the actual, place. Often people have problems that are created outside of the actual place that it manifests. This, from what I saw, the mayor stated in a nutshell, the officer will be getting fired. Yeah, he did. Matter of fact, though, he didn't state that the dude was gonna get fired. He basically said that they were gonna follow the whatever the how do you say, judge had recommended. They was gonna follow the recommendations of the judge. That's what I remember him saying. I'm not sure if he said anything before then, but he did say that they was gonna follow the recommendations of the judge. That I do remember him saying. And the judge said that, or they took the recommendations of the courts very serious. And that's rightfully so. That guy got to remove his job. Look, first of all, one of the main reasons why he needs to be removed from his job, if not nothing else, because I didn't see him have any remorse. Let's say you have a police officer that legitimately kills somebody by accident. It's a real accident, but he doesn't have any remorse. I don't want that guy to still be a police officer. We need to get him up out of there, even though it was 100% an accident. Because one of the main things that a police officer, in my belief, needs to have is some kind of empathy for life. So if you don't have no empathy for life, you know what I'm saying? Like that's crazy. The guy was selling. The guy was. It was cigarettes. He was selling cigarettes. He wasn't nowhere breaking. He wasn't hurting nobody. Well, I mean, you could argue that he was killing people because cigarettes cause cancer, but he wasn't hurting anybody. He wasn't doing anything. He was selling cigarettes. He wasn't even selling drugs. He was selling cigarettes. You understand what I'm saying? But he wasn't selling cigarettes on that day. At that time, they didn't catch him selling cigarettes. It was just a crime that they had accused him of before, or that he had been guilty of before, one of the two. But on that day, he had not done it. So, for an individual to have killed, played a part in that guy's death, and also to have zero sympathy, that's just, I don't think that person should be a police officer. How could you have zero sympathy at another person passing away, but then be for law and justice? I just can't see it. I just can't see it. I mean, I get it though. Being a police officer or somebody in law enforcement, you have to have a certain level of machismo, let's say. Great news, Jax. Get him out of there. You're fried copper. You're fried copper. You said Coper, by the way. That should be 2 P's. But yeah, he's out of it. He needs to be fired. He needs to be hit with his bags. I'm happy that they did. But like I said, not just because he caused another person's life to be lost, but because of his lack of concern. There's a point, right? Where if you're that callous or if you don't care, you shouldn't have. Would you want somebody, an EMS worker, pulling up to come help you, and they don't really care if you live or die? Would you want to be treated by the doctor that when you go to the hospital they don't care about human life? It should be the same way for police officers. If a police officer does not care about human life, then we shouldn't be allowing them to be police officers. That's just my point. That's my position. You don't care about the human life? How could you be in control or in charge or have authority over human life if you don't care about human life? That don't make sense.
Yeah, definitely. We have to, because we have been.
It's just my position on that. Anyway, I'm gonna let y'all go. I'm just holding y'all at this point. Everybody enjoy y'all day. Go check out the new vids that I dropped. I dropped a couple of vids today. Go check them out. I'm out.
You can move a little bit and just sit in front. If it's possible. Like one chair, you can move it.
Yeah, you got to see the lead one.